Unrest Podcast.
Welcome to season 2 of the Unrest Podcast. I'm Carter Coyle.
I'm Madeleine Green.
And I'm Kaitlin Stansel. We're back.
Yay!
From maternity leave.
But only one of us had a child. How's that going, Carter?
Oh my gosh, it's wonderful. I think Madeleine posted a picture or two on the Facebook page, but my Madeleine is doing fantastic. We love her so much. She's gaining weight. She's literally the cutest child on the face planet as far as I'm concerned. She's so fun and sweet and smart. I mean, I'm pretty much in love. Kaitlin's gotten to meet her a couple of times, so I think
I'm
she's
really
jealous.
jealous.
She's so cute. She's like a little peanut.
We definitely missed doing the podcast, but it was a good break over the holidays. But I know that we are glad to be back at it.
We are, and we thought it'd be appropriate since it's kind of a new year, a new administration, to focus our story for season 2, episode 1 on Washington, D.C.
Yeah, so we decided to focus on kind of the White House. And the first article I read about White House ghosts was from the Washington Post, and it said in 1469, President Harry S. Truman was woken up by a knock on his door. And we have this paranormal account through a letter that he actually wrote to his wife, and it is in his museum. He has like a presidential type museum, and the letter is actually there. So
That's
if you
cool.
wanted to go check up on my facts, but
Kind of miss when people used to write letters accounting everything in their daily lives. That
I know, right?
now is like pieces of history preserved.
But
And
also,
so-
it's so hard to even get people to send wedding RSVPs back. So,
Oh yeah.
so
I haven't even sent mine back, and I'm in the wedding.
I assume you'll be there.
Yeah.
I think hopefully, I mean, we'll be there. We're in it.
Yeah.
So.
So a quote from this letter that he wrote to his wife starts out like this. I jumped out and put on my bathrobe, opened the door, and still no one was there. Went out and looked up and down the hall, looked in your room and in Margie's. First of all, I find it interesting that she had her own room. Was that like
So
a thing?
old-fashioned.
Yeah?
I think that they didn't really sleep together unless
Okay.
they were doing it.
Okay. Looked in your room and Margie's, still no one. Went back to bed after locking the doors, and then there were footsteps in your room, whose door I had left open. Jumped back up, looked, and no one was there. The damn place is haunted, sure as shooting.
That's a direct quote.
That's
Yes.
my new saying.
Yeah.
That's great.
Secret Service said not even a watchman was up there at that hour. You and Margie had better come back and protect me before some of these ghosts carry me off. I thought that was such a cute little letter that he wrote.
He sounds
So-
kind of fun.
I know, right? That's what I was thinking. Sure as shooting. I mean,
And
but,
I love that there was like a personal account. Like, you know, a lot of times for these places that we cover, it's hard to find a really personal account from someone. So that's cool.
yeah, and this one, the White House is full of personal accounts of these ghost sightings, which is really cool. So the question is, of course, is the White House haunted? And 8 presidents have said that yes, it is indeed haunted. Some of the past ghosts that have been seen or heard around this prestigious house, starting with the most seen ghost. Do you guys have an idea of the most seen ghost?
George
Lincoln?
Washington.
Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln.
I mean,
So-
one of us was going to be right, Kate.
So there's a great story that involves the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. He had just gotten out of a hot bath and was kind of walking around the adjoining bedroom naked, smoking a cigar, when he said he saw a familiar face leaned up against the fireplace. Churchill is said to have kind of tapped out the ashes of his cigar and said, "Good evening, Mr. President. You seem to have caught me at a disadvantage." And they said that Lincoln kind of smiled back at him and then just disappeared. You know, Churchill was not easily rattled by certain things, but they said he did refuse to sleep in that bedroom ever again.
So I don't blame him.
Yeah, right? Especially when you're naked smoking a cigar around your room and you just see a ghost.
Oh my gosh.
So others to see Lincoln were actually Eleanor Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Queen Wilhelmina. I think he came to her door. When she opened it, she saw him and she just fainted right there. Dwight Eisenhower, Ronald Reagan, Herbert Hoover. So Lincoln is kind of known as the White House ghost. He's the most seen. But before he shared his ghostly presence with other people, it was known that he himself talked about a visitor that came to see him on a regular basis. His son, Willie, who died at the White House in 1862 at 11 years old from typhoid fever. And that also his wife, Mary Todd, who she said she saw his ghost as well at the foot of her bed. But Mary...
God, how sad would that be to lose your child and then see the ghost and like,
yeah,
are you back? Was that all a bad dream? I mean,
right?
That's horrifying.
And Mary also had a kind of a musical encounter where she heard Thomas Jefferson playing the violin in the Yellow Oval Room.
Oh, no big deal. Just a little Jefferson orchestra symphony.
It's known that Mary was actually very into this type of paranormal thing because she actually held seances and came in contact with a bunch of different ghosts. Then we move on to William Taft, who is said to have actually seen the ghost of Abigail Adams doing laundry. Yep. He said he would see her kind of floating around with her arms out like there was laundry. And she was known to hang sheets and stuff in this room that got the most direct sunlight, and that's where he would see her. But he also kept all the ghost sightings secret from everyone. So anyone who came to him with it, I've seen this ghost or something's weird happening, he wanted to keep all of that a secret.
And I love that that's what she came back to do.
No, God, come on, lady.
Woodrow Wilson, his staff actually is known to have seen the ghost of Dolly Madison, whose afterlife has consisted of taking care of the garden that she planted. Well, Wilson's wife was tired of this garden and she wanted them to dig it up. And they said that as they were doing that, Dolly swooped out of the sky and chased them away from destructing this garden.
Out of the sky.
Yeah. So this one's pretty funny. I don't know how accurate it is, but it was too good not to share. And it said that some think that the Donald even saw some ghosts at the White House. They say
that would explain a lot.
They say he took as many vacations away from the White House as he could, and that it is thought that it is because he wasn't a fan of the White House ghosts.
It wasn't really about golf or anything. It was the ghost.
The ghost. The source, who is a Republican activist, said that apparently he thinks that they visited him his first night there, and now he just hates to even go in the White House, and he just wanders around in his pajamas because he doesn't want to go to sleep. So, who knows the truth
that
behind
explains
Okie dokie.
a lot.
Too good not to share that encounter.
Fine. There's a lot we'd like to ask him, but that just made the list. I would like to ask him about any ghost sightings at the White House.
And his lack of sleep. I mean, tell me about it.
You can tell it in those eyes. He's just up all night in his pajamas. I'd like to see what his pajamas looked like.
Okay, I bet they're like silky red, like a two-piece. So the top is like a shirt.
Yep.
The bottom are like silky
Long
pants, and he
sleeve.
has like loafers that furry loafers that he wears around him.
So the last story is from Jenna Bush. She was actually on the Kelly Clarkson show not too long ago talking about this White House musical ghost. She said that we're very friendly and compassionate to her and her twin sister. She didn't actually live in the White House. She was in college during the time that her father was in office, but she would visit. They would stay in an adjoining bedroom. And they had a fireplace in there. One night, in the middle of the night, Jenna's phone rings. It wakes both of them up. And then all of a sudden, out of the fireplace, there was this 1920s type piano music.
What?
Yeah.
It's so cool.
So, they're asking each other, do you both hear it? But then the next week, it was opera music.
Out of the fire.
Yes.
It's
so they kind of tried... Yeah, they tried to talk themselves out of the idea that the house was haunted, but one of the White House staff members actually changed their mind. When they saw him the next day, they said, "Oh my goodness, you're not going to believe what we heard." And he said, "Oh, Jenna, you won't believe what I've heard over the years." So definitely something going on there. I would say that obviously there's a lot of evidence from some very prominent people that we've trusted with America that the White House is haunted, but who actually knows?
Love those stories.
Those are so good.
Aren't they fun?
I would love to stay a night there just to see what it's like.
Well, Kaitlin, in our haunted history, I'll show you how you can get a room for only $19.95. Just kidding. You cannot stay.
Oh, I thought you were being serious. I was like, oh, that's cheap.
And if you call right now, we'll throw in a free ghost sighting.
Yeah. For our haunted history today, I found a ton of White House facts and fun stuff. And I thought maybe there would just be a few, but I found so many. So y'all probably have to cut me off at some point. But before I get into that, I will say I found an article on thehill.com talking about how during the transition of presidents, there's usually only a 5-hour period where the staff works furiously to get all the old president stuff out and all the new president stuff in. And if you think about how long it takes you to move into a new house, that's pretty incredible. They don't like a lot of outside movers involved, obviously, for security reasons. So it's pretty much up to the staff. And, they empty all the trucks out. And this was kind of cool. It says, it makes sense, but any pieces that were on loan from White House permanent collection are shipped back to federal storage, and outgoing first families are not allowed to keep pieces from that collection because they're property of the government. So you know how you hear about how they choose certain pictures and statues to have paintings, all those stay with the government in the federal storage facility. And then also, if the outgoing president received gifts from a foreign dignitary during his term, those gifts are considered to be not personal either. They were part of the job. And so they are obtained by the National Archives unless the president is particularly fond of the gift. And then sometimes he or she, it's only been he's, but maybe one day, should be able to buy it for market value. So that's kind of cool. So gifts are really actually government property too.
That sucks.
I know, but
at the same time, like, it's a gift to the country, not necessarily.
Right. He's really.
What if it was a gift to you? And he said, Kaitlin, I want you to have this necklace of my great grandmother's, but then you don't even get to keep it.
Then you just put it in your pocket and don't tell anyone about it.
Let's not talk about this.
I wonder also, like, do they sage the White House between administrations? That would be interesting and necessary, I feel.
White House for the new year. So
just really get rid of all the energy from the previous
person. And I didn't find a ton. I could have looked longer, but I was just wondering, like, okay, how much money do they get to redecorate the White House and stuff? And I did see an article that says, at first in the old days, it was only a few $1,000s, but nowadays it's something like $100,000 to do any updates, renovations, repainting, because they are living in it all day, every day. So just like in your house, after 4 years, you're going to have some pretty major changes or renovations you want to make. So it sounds like they get about $100,000, and then they can, anything past that, they pay out of their own pockets. So the actual fun facts I found, y'all will laugh because I found them on bobvilla.com. Is it Bob? It's Bob Vila, right?
Bob Vila.
Yes. I love him. And
wait, why can't I remember what
he had that home he was like the original home improvement guy.
Yeah.
I think
for some reason I was just imagining like Tom the Toolman Taylor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Yeah, that's actually very accurate.
He was on the show.
Bob Vila's.
It'd be like, we're bringing out the Bob Vila chainsaw or whatever.
Okay.
So he has this on his website. There was 21 crazy but true facts about the White House. I didn't pull over all of them, but almost all of them were really good. And I thought that was kind of fun coming from Bob Vila. So here we go. It's a reputable source, and I won't hear otherwise.
Yeah, it's Bob Vila.
To start with, the White House has it's a lot bigger than I really realized, because I think even on like the West Wing show and stuff, you only see certain offices over and over, but the actual whole White House is huge. So 132 rooms, 35 bathrooms, and 6 floors. So given that it's just a mammoth mansion, it says there's, 400 something doors, 100 something windows, 28 fireplaces, 8 staircases, 3 elevators. And so visitors, longtime staff members, even who've worked there forever, can very easily get lost. That's crazy. It's a lot bigger than I realized.
And out of one of those fireplaces, you will hear
You can hear music. Yeah, scary ghost music. Great.
And I'm sure like the part that you see on the tour is like a fraction of all of it, you know?
Oh, yes, a little tiny bit. So before it was actually named and called the White House, it was referred to as the President's Palace or the President's House and the Executive Mansion. So it had kind of different names, and it wasn't really until 1901, so what, like 120 years ago, that under Theodore Roosevelt, he dubbed it, because it was an ivory symbol of our nation. He called it the White House, and it stuck ever since. So that was good old Teddy. So
now, question.
Yeah. Oh, I probably won't know, but go ahead.
Okay.
Just ask Bob Vila.
Yeah.
Yes. Can we call Bob Vila?
Mm-hmm.
Originally, were there that many rooms, or did they like build onto it?
There's definitely been additions over the years. I don't know a lot more than that, but from what I read when I was researching, there definitely have been additions. So I was at a little bit of an advantage, truth be told, to your question earlier about the most common ghost. So because I had read this little fact earlier that
you cheated.
So Kaitlin wouldn't have known this, but George Washington was our nation's first president, but he actually never even set foot in the White House. So it was under construction during both of his terms in office, and so he never actually lived or even worked in the White House, and it wasn't completed until the year after he died. And at the end of his presidency, he went to Mount Vernon. So Washington, White House actually didn't go together, even though you might think they would. Our second president, John Adams, in 1796 elected and was the first official occupant of those presidential quarters, the White House. So the first family does live in the White House first, rent-free, which is a good thing, because apparently the cost of upkeep and utilities of a house that size would probably put a dent in most people's pocket. The estimate on Zillow of the value, like the market value of the White House, is $397 million.
Holy moly.
And that,
also, what I kind of find interesting is, like, you know, back in the day, I feel like the people elected president came from more lesser means, I guess.
like humble background.
Whereas today it's like you have to be rich basically to get to that point.
Yes. It's 168 feet long. And so I thought this was kind of fun because my house is a little more than 2,000 square feet, and it would take 20 gallons to paint my house, the exterior of it. It would take 570 gallons to paint the White House exterior. Another fun fact is that one of the most influential figures associated with actually building the White House is one of the least known. I'd never heard of him. An Irish-born architect named James Hoban was responsible for designing it and constructing it, as well as rebuilding it after it was ravaged by a fire during the War of 1812.
Dang.
So we, a little nod to my Irish roots there. Modern day presidents have their predecessor Benjamin Harris to thank for the electricity that was installed in the White House in 1891. And he and his wife were obviously a little forward thinking in terms of wanting to install electricity, but were afraid of getting electrocuted because electricity was so new and different and probably kind of scary to have in your home. So they would refuse to touch any of the light switches and would just sleep at night with the lights on, which is so funny to think of nowadays.
But I would be scared too, because electricity is not to be played with.
Yeah, and to be fair, it probably wasn't like there was no codes at that time, so who knows what the rigging was like of the electricity. Members of the press corps shuffle into the briefing room that we're all used to seeing on TV, and they've in 1970 Nixon pushed for a bigger space to hold all the reporters and the number of people that was growing wanting to cover the White House side of things and the presidency. However, what many people don't know is that where that press briefing room is was once an indoor swimming room for Franklin Roosevelt. and that he had this indoor aquatic arena built in the 30s to replace the laundry quarters that were there. And he used to swim in it religiously, like every day, to help soothe his polio. It sounds like there is still a pool on grounds, but just obviously not in the press court room. So I didn't know this. This was kind of crazy and kind of helps you think of the staggering size of this place. Under the north portico, the basement of the White House is almost like a little shopping mall. It has a flower shop, a carpenter's, an engineer's shop. They're responsible for repairing furnishings and equipment. There's a dentist office, a bowling alley added by Nixon. There is a tennis court outside that Obama had turned into a basketball court too. So it's like a joint effort. And I think it said Melania Trump had like a tennis pavilion put out there. So there's plenty of little additions that have happened sports wise. The White House is called the White House, but the whole house and grounds is actually known as President's Park and is one of 59 U.S. national parks, 18 acres. They have 13 people like gardeners and horticulturists who are maintaining it every day. Oh, this was fun considering all the inauguration craziness last week. Apparently it's a prim and proper celebration today, but it used to be kind of a crazy party back in the 1800s when Andrew Jackson was inaugurated, for example, in 1829. It was just like open to the public where you could come by and wish the new president well. And I imagine have a drink and cheers. And apparently Jackson was thronged by so many well-wishers that he ended up hiding out at a nearby hotel while the unruly crowd was forced out onto the lawn for cocktails. So like they literally just had people.
I think we should go back to those times.
I kind of like it.
I mean,
if only we could trust people, we could all hang out at the White House. This is why we can't have nice things.
Cocktail hour on the White House lawn.
Just a couple more here, 2 more. One is about dinners. So you can imagine that like the chefs in the kitchens, who I bet they're just crazy busy around the clock. They whip up gourmet creations in record time, according to Bob Vila. With the help of 5 full-time chefs, they can serve appetizers to 1,000 guests at once. Do like a full sit-down dinner for up to 140 people. So that's like a wedding a day. You know, if you have 140 people, I mean, they're not having that every day, but if they wanted to, they could. They have the staff. That's crazy. And the last fun fact is about animals and pets in the White House, because you can always end on a happy animal note. President Adams had a horse named Cleopatra. President Obama obviously had their dog Bo. Pets are basically treated like royalty at the White House. And while most have kind of like the normal domestic animals, there have been some exotic creatures in the first families. Apparently, John Quincy Adams had an alligator.
Oh,
was rumored to live in a White House bathroom. I love this one, being the cat lady. President Martin Van Buren was presented with 2 rambunctious tiger cubs by the Sultan of Oman.
Aww. He was gifted them. Does he?
I guess they belong to us as a nation. Good point. So are these tiger cubs in the National Archive?
I mean, where are the cubs?
Where are the cubs? We're going to have to investigate. But Congress supposedly sent them off to the zoo. So, me, little tigers couldn't live at the White House. That's bullshit.
I know. I mean,
so those are some of our fun White House facts that you may not know. I certainly didn't. So that was really a cool one to look into. I'm also hoping that Madeleine, our social chair, could be so kind as to post this other link I found on housebeautiful.com that has a slideshow of crazy White House additions over the years.
Yeah.
So that kind of answers your question about the expansives that they've done. That's your haunted history for today.
Anyways.
Well, Kaitlin, speaking of the White House, you have a fun White House story for us too, but not the White House we've been talking about today.
Yeah, this is a different White House. This is one here in the Low Country. And if you've ever visited down here, kind of, I would call them like the plantation style houses, or these big, beautiful white houses. And this one that I visited, to get to it, you have to go down this pretty long driveway, and it has these beautiful live oaks with the moss coming down. It just, definitely the quintessential low country setting for a home. And I was out there doing a story on something completely different. It was about a road project or something. And the lady mentioned, the lady had mentioned that she was selling her home, and asked her, has anything spooky ever happened here? Because it seems like it would have a lot of history. And this is the story that she shared with me.
I was told by a woman who lived here, who grew up, that there was a ghost in the back bedroom, that it was her sister's room, and her sister had seen the ghost, and the ghost was of a woman in a rocking chair, rocking a baby. And I believe that her sister saw it several times.
Wow.
And that's all I know.
Oh my gosh.
Now, I also, along the lines with ghosts, I have a friend who lives downtown, and at some point there was a conversation with a group about ghosts. And she mentioned that there was a ghost in her house, and I think they'd been told when they bought it. And she said that what she did was, when they moved into the house, she addressed the ghost and said, "We love this house. We're excited about it being our home, and we are sharing it with you. And, we hope that it will be okay for us to be here." And she said, and several people said, "Oh yeah, that's what you're supposed to do." So I came home and I walked into the house and I said, "Okay, I'm really glad you're sharing this house with me and my family, my children. And it's a wonderful old house. And, I hope we will get along well," or something to that effect.
And so you've never had any experience?
I've never had the experience, no. And this was an interesting experience. It was not paranormal. I was in bed one night, and you know how sometimes, like, you're sleeping, you feel like you're moving or something, and you realize you actually aren't. And, like, all of a sudden, I feel, I'm dreaming, I'm in a boat, and the boat's rocking, and I thought, I'm moving. I woke up, and I could literally feel my bed moving. However, the next day, they reported that there had been an earthquake.
Oh my gosh.
Minor earthquake in Somerville. And there are faults all around Charleston. So my assumption is I am at least connected to one fault line.
And you were feeling it, and
I could feel it and dreaming it, but it was just, it's like just for a minute. When I woke up, it just went. I was kind of like waking up and realized it was moving, and then I'm going, "What is this?" And then I realized, oh my gosh, I bet it's an earthquake. And then the next morning it was confirmed.
Wow, that's crazy.
So, but no, there are lots of fascinating stories. There's a lot of research being done about some of the old cemeteries, because they had wooden markers, and there were some there was a group of blacks that was trying to go through and identify where some of them were and everything else. So, there's so much history out here. There really is.
Definitely. When you talked to the woman who lived here before and she had seen the woman and the baby in the rocker.
It was her sister. Her sister had.
Did they ever have any idea who the woman might have been?
No. They could not. The original, the whole history of Charleston, about the Lord's proprietor and everything else. Okay, so there was a man named Abraham Waite, Waight, and he received some parcel, a grant for a large parcel. I think it was 7,000 acres. The Angel Oak is actually part of what that acreage was, and then so you can actually, if you go down to the courthouse, or at least you used to be able to, there is a climate controlled room where you can look at the deeds the original deeds, like the hand calligraphy and everything. It's fascinating. But I could trace it back through to Abraham Wade, all the way up through the Civil War, just because there weren't that many changes. And then from a time period about like 1890 to 1930, I still need to track those deeds. And then it was owned. The Gilberts were here for about 5 years in the early 50s. And I think there were like maybe 3 owners after that or something. But I mean, houses have their own stories to tell, you know, and I think it's kind of, the more you can understand kind of about the life, you know, what kind of lives went on in the house or something. I just think it's interesting.
Yeah, kind of makes you love the home even more.
Oh, it does, and appreciate it. So, and you know, and you look at some place like John's Island, and there are a lot of places that, you know, where there's stories.
Does she live there alone? That makes me feel like I'd be a little creeped out.
I think she did, to be honest. I could be wrong, but she was the only one there at the time when I met her and her dog.
Well, that was a great first episode to kick off our new season. Thanks for everyone for kind of giving us some time off for our maternity leaves. And
having a baby is stressful.
Yes, for all of you.
Well, definitely, if you have a story or know someone who does, put them in touch with us. Our email is the Unrest Podcast at gmail.com.
Oh, also follow us on Facebook or join our Facebook group. We always post fun, interesting, spooky things in there.
We really do. We have fun little thought-provoking questions and all sorts of fun stuff that Madeleine comes up with.
And on Sundays, we like to post scary stories from other places.
I'm also thinking about doing a Tombstone Tuesday.
Ooh.
Love.
Ooh.
Definitely check us out. And if you listen to the podcast and you love it, please give us a 5-star rating.
And to give you a little tease to episode 2 of this brand new season, we're going to be hearing about Madeleine's trip to Sedona, Arizona, where she had a couple of experiences that she wants to tell us about. So that'll be fun.
And also we have a really fun interview coming up soon with a woman who is involved in being a medium, the psychic kind of realm. Yeah.
Okay, and also next episode, while we're teasing, I want to talk about this show on Netflix called Near Death. OMG.
So there's a lot that you don't want to miss in the next episode, so stick around with us here on the Unrest Podcast.
Unrest in peace.